Ma'am, shall we start the session, ma'am? Shobha, ma'am, shall we start the session, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am. Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. With this beautiful quote from PPG campus, I wish you all a happy afternoon. On behalf of Department of English, PPG College of Arts and Science, Coimbatore, it's my immense pleasure to welcome the management of PPG Group of Institutions for this platform. Welcome you, sir. A great leader paves the way to get success. It's my indeed happiness to welcome our beloved principal, Dr. N. Muttumani ma'am, a great supporter to all of us for this session. Welcome you, ma'am. I would like to welcome the most distinguished and versatile personality, Dr. Shobha Ramasamy ma'am, today's guest for the session. Welcome you, ma'am. I take this opportunity to welcome the participants from various institutions for this forum. Welcome you all. I would like to welcome my supporting partners, Ms. B. Menaka Devi and Ms. R. Dharani Devi, Assistant Professors, Department of English, to this session. Welcome you both. Once again, I welcome you all for the day 1 of 7 days National Level Virtual Faculty Development Program. And the topic of today is Moving Towards Universality, Literature in the Cross-Cultural Context. With this welcoming note, I would like to invite Ms. B. Menaka Devi, Assistant Professor, Department of English, to introduce today's guest, Dr. Shobha Ramasamy ma'am.
Good company, good wine, good welcome can make good people. Good afternoon to all. I feel honored to welcome our chief guest, Shobha Ramaswamy, Assistant Professor and Head Department of English, Konganadu Arts and Science College, Coimbatore. Ma'am has 21 years of teaching experience and has guided 15 MPhil candidates and 10 PhD candidates so far. Ma'am has undergone a major UGC project in English fiction for children and young adults in India between 1990 and 2010. Ma'am has completed a number of online courses like Powerful Tools for Teaching and Learning, Digital Storytelling, Storytelling to Influence, Enthusiasm Throughout Scriptures, and Creative Writing. In addition, Ma'am has published 16 books as author, 2 books as co-author, 5 edited books, and 39 book chapters, including articles and research papers. Ma'am has presented 41 papers and attended many conferences and has acted as an organizer for various programs conducted by Kongonadu Arts and Science College, Coimbatore. Ma'am was a life member at Indian Science Congress Association, Kolkata, and New Delhi member at Dr. J.K. Research Foundation. Ma'am was a journal reviewer and acted as a consultant to Manoj Prakashan's Discovery series of textbooks for schools. Ma'am has been acted as a resource person for national and international conferences. Last but not least, she has contributed for curriculum development for BA and MA English Literature and certificate course in journalism and mass media of Konganadu Arts and Science College. MA English Literature of Nirmala College for Women, Coimbatore. She has introduced courses in children's literature, travel writing, sports literature, classical literature in translation, world literature in translation, Indian feminist literature, and certificate courses in storytelling and contributed extensively and the revisions of papers such as Indian writing in English and women's writing. Thank you.
Thank you, Menaka. I would like to hand over the session to Shobha ma'am. Ma'am, the session is yours, ma'am.
Uh, Good afternoon to the management principal, dignitaries, faculty members, and participants of the FDP. I am deeply honored to be the first resource person of this useful program, and I hope to contribute uh, something to this. I'm not very, first of all, I'm not very familiar with this area, so please excuse me if I'm not very technical in my speech. I'd just like to share with you some of the views about cross-cultural literature. and what we should do to understand other people of the world through literature. So, literature is first of all a means of understanding the human race, and uh, literature has allowed us to travel to distant corners of the world without actually leaving our rooms. Some books, however, bring you to other worlds, and they show us different cultures and reveal the mystery and beauty of others, make us aware of the hardship and dreams and hidden scars of those whom we have not met. It facilitates the understanding of different cultures. Literature also provides a different perspective on various topics and subjects. It teaches the reader tolerance and understanding, encourages open mindedness, provides engagement in cross cultural communication, increase ability to communicate with people from different cultures, and then moreover, it removes prejudices, which is a very necessary thing in today's world, because our world today is a globalized arena. We cannot live alone up and apart as we did before because of the communication of the electronic the media, and also the migration due to various the job opportunities in different countries, and then the visiting different countries and so on. We in India are not so much exposed to the multicultural context in our academic field, but soon I think we will be. We are like other universities around the world. Our universities also will have students from different countries and the ethnic groups speaking different languages. So, in this context, this cross cultural literature is very important and useful to us. And then we say that in order to define cross cultural literature, we'll have to break up the concept. According to the Merriam Webster Dictionary, cross cultural is offering comparison between two or different cultures or cultural areas. When you speak of something being cross cultural, we are talking about comparing one or more cultures' worldview with the other culture's worldview. Literature is how we express universal thoughts and ideas through writing. So, from the different worldviews, we can find some universality. I found out when I was researching archetypes in literature, which actually archetypes is my first area of research, and it is my most favorite one. I found that the ideas of Jung and Fry and also Joseph Campbell, they all aimed at uniting us to find out this unity in diversity. Though we belong to different ethnic groups speaking different languages and so on, we actually, as human beings, we have a lot in common, and this can be seen through archetypes, like we have various images and patterns which are common to world literature. For example, the image of the wise old man. We can see in almost all cultures we have this image. We have in India we have the culture was the like Bhishma, the rishis, the siddhas, all wise old men archetypes. Whereas in foreign countries also we have in the legends like Merlin, the wizard, and these archetypes permeate all fiction and even non-fiction. And we have patterns like the hero's journey, and the hero's journey, which was made famous by Joseph Campbell. That is, our life is a journey, and it is it is a metaphor of our existence, life journey of the hero, that is ourselves. Literature, through literature, we can express universal thoughts. We can overcome these cultural differences by looking at the deeper human at a deeper human level. Cross-cultural literature helps in this way. It shows us different viewpoints and scenarios, but beyond that, we can look at the commonalities which make us human. We sometimes the cross culture need not be from a different country. Within our country also, we have so many cultures. India is a great, I mean, it's a great subcontinent. It's not a mere country. We have so many, I mean, like for northeast people and the things, people from the south, people from the west, following different cultural patterns. But still, we have a lot of things in common that we like, which we dislike. But still, understanding is very important. For example, I came across this in George Reiga's works. Of course, they are set in Canada, and George Reiga's plays like The Indian and The Ecstasy of Rita Joe, they show the sufferings of the Native Americans, that is, who were originally called Red Indians, and how they were marginalized, and they were deprived of education, deprived of the lands, and deprived of the dignity and their own language and culture. So this we can understand through the George Rega's plays. Such works allow us to look into the cultures of the other. We should not treat. There is always in literature. There is always ourselves and the other. So to understand the other, and to then to accept the other as ourselves. That is the work of literature. And all this started, I think, in my opinion, with Derrida and other critics around the time. Derrida said the center is not the center, and he was against Eurocentrism. And in those days, Europe and America, the white man's lands, were considered the only culture, and it was we have already seen about the white man's burden, how the British justified colonizing others, and saying that they were bringing culture to the others. They thought that the others had no culture of their own. So Derrida and of course um, the critics, they were against this, and they made us understand that there's no center actually. There are several centers, and everything is important, and there should be everything, all other literatures, languages, and people, they should be given importance. So we have now a different scenario altogether. uh, we have, first of all, we have now a mixed race and multi-ethnic culture studies also. We have in America now, we have so many mixed race people who are more or less accepted um, by the white people and so on. This we can see when we study Indian diasporic fiction. Um, for example, Jhumpa Lahiri's namesake, we can see that it highlights the different attitudes of the diasporic people according to different generations. In namesake, we have the first generation which migrates from India to the US, and they more or less retain their identity as Bengalis, as Indians, and they are very traditional in nature. But the second generation, like the son and daughter, they have two identities. One is an Indian identity, one is the American identity. Actually, they perceive themselves as being American, but they cannot avoid the familial the same thoughts, because for example, the hero of namesake is called Nikolai Gogol. Sorry, his name is Gogol because he is named by his father such, but he has two names. One is Nikhil, which is a good name, and then Gogol. That is a tradition of the Bengalis. They have something called the good name, and the house name. That is a pet name at home, which is very important, which is known to the family members. In fact, we also have such relations. As some of our relations' real names are not known to us. We know them only by the family or pet names. So that concept is still carried on there. But then the girl grows up as a perplexed man. He cannot totally accept the foreign setup like his wife does, and he tries to assimilate as best as he can. But he is still an ABCD. That is the people who are Asian born Desis, confused Desis, ABCD. So they were that generation was like that. But then we see in later works like Chitra Banerjee's The Queen of Dreams. We do not see that much of a confusion. The two confusions. Even Chitra Banerjee's earlier work like Arranged Marriage, we saw some confusion of the Indian-born ABCDs. But in her later works, it is not so. But slowly, it is all phasing out because we see all the saying the vice president of the US and the prime minister of UK. They are all of Indian origin, and people are being more inclusive in their approach. In the olden days, it was not so. For example, we see that in the British tradition, um, we come across this term. Uh, One second, please. And Being Black, Being British by Gilroy, which is an influential work. And in that Gilroy claimed that there was no black in the Union Jack. The Union Jack is the flag of United Kingdom, and it is blue and red and white. There's no black in it. There's no place for the black people in the society. They are in British society. They are treated as second-class citizens. That's what Paul Gilroy said, and he contrasted it with the US. And he said in US there is some thing, presence of the black cultures. So he called it the Black Atlantic, and he said it's a melting pot of cultures. Now there is something called double consciousness among the among diasporic people, and this double consciousness is sort of confusion whether we belong to the country of our origin or whether we belong to the country where we have settled. But now instead of a binary identity, now the identity of the diasporic people has become sort of a hybrid identity, and because of the large presence of multiracial people in the West. So now Carrington says that a diasporic transculturation has taken place, whereas there's consciousness of both European and African cultures among people of African origin. Sometimes a sportsman may get confused if he's a black sportsman and he is playing for England. He may be confused whether he should say that he is an Englishman or whether he should say he is a black person. But then Carrington goes on to say that there is black in the Union Jack. That is now the colored people are being accepted. The challenge is to articulate a notion of black Britishness as being black and being British also. Then, as far as texts are concerned, as far as when we're reading texts are concerned, and when we are teaching texts in a cross-cultural situation, we are always come across this confusion. That is, we teach Wordsworth and Keats and all the romantics, for example, and we see the description of the British landscape, and sometimes we teach Frost, and we see the woods filling up with snow. And but students do understand how it feels because of the large exposure that they have to the foreign text. Otherwise, when you think of it, if they do not have any exposure to the foreign text, they will think that it is very strange because when we say what a beautiful summer's day, actually we are suffering in the heat here. What is what is beauty in the summer's days? So unless we transport ourselves to that culture, we'll not be able to understand. But fortunately, our teachers and we as teachers, we have been able to somewhat make the people understand. So it is not impossible that a student in our cultural situation cannot understand the text because it is in a different cultural situation. And because even on the foreigners, we read about the, for example, life of Pi. The hero is Pi, an Indian boy, and it's a tiger, Bengal tiger, is a symbol of our a national animal. And so, but people love the book. So it is not. It is quite possible for us to understand others and appreciate other cultures, and that is why because we are literature people, we are able to do this. It is a oneness of human experience that we see. The ode to the Nightingale, experience of Keats, how he is transported to the world of the Nightingale, his suffering, that we can identify. Identify with very easily. But there are because there is, but when there is a teaching of language, I have a feeling that the language cannot be taught apart from its culture. If we learn Japanese, we should learn about Japanese culture. If we learn French, we should learn about French culture. Otherwise, a language deprived of a culture will become very mechanical, and we cannot actually understand anything. So we experience it in our daily life. Sometimes we have students asking us, they try to catch us out actually. They try to prove that we do not know English properly. They'll come and ask, sir, madam, what is English for idli? Then we cannot say exactly rice cake, because cake is sweet. So literal translation, it's not very well. It's not possible actually because of the cultural baggage that goes with every word. Every word has a denotative meaning, and every word has a connotative meaning. And thank you for the participant who said who agrees with me. And then we have so sometimes cultures, in order to teach culture, cross-cultural text, we need some translation also. But in translation, we should be very careful, especially when the translation of poetry comes, so it does not sound odd. A translation cannot be little, because if it is very little, it will sound sometimes funny. We should use words which give the same effect as the original. Not the same words, but with the exact same meaning. Because, for example, a cow. When you say cow in India, a cow is a revered animal, a beloved animal. But whereas in UK, and so sorry, in US, it's a derogatory term. If you call somebody a cow, it's a great insult. So we have to be very fine-tuned when you translate, because there's a beautiful line from Pardiyar, Chinanjirugiriye Kannamma. So there was a translation I came across some years back, and it struck me as odd. Instead of this tiny little parakeet, my eye mother. So can we say that Chinanjirugiriye Kannamma, tiny little parakeet, eye mother? So there are cultural differences. We can which have the connotative meaning, and we have come to closer to each other globally, and there are post-colonial critics um, who have made us understand some of the problems in reading foreign literature. For example, we have the book "The Mad Woman in the Attic." It's by Sandra Gilbert and Susan Gruber, and they have critiqued Jane Eyre. So in Jane Eyre, we have all read and enjoyed Jane Eyre, and when we read a foreign text, we identify ourselves with the foreigner. We do not we do not look at them as alien. We just identify with them. But then, if you think deeply, like Sandra Gilbert and Susan Gruber, we understand that the foreigner in that text has been discriminated against. It is the other is considered as other. In the book, Jana is the heroine. She's a white lady. She's the heroine, and whereas Bertha, the mad wife of or the wife who's supposed to be mad of Rochester, is locked up in a room, and she's portrayed as a demonic woman, uncivilized woman, which when we closely read the text, we find that it's not true actually. So because she belongs to a West Indian ethnic group, she is discriminated against. So such things we are now aware of, but we overcome also that level of difference, and we come across a golden mean in which to read the text. Uh, the post-colonial critics like Edward Said, Gayatri Spivak, they made us understand, made us and the Western reader understand such discrimination. There are writers called Toni Morrison, Maya Angelou, and then who made us aware, like the Blue Sky and so on. It made us aware of the illusion created by the Westerners. But now, when we go to real life, we have people from all over the world in studying in academia, especially. We can see even in Harry Potter books. So there's better understanding. When the British came to India, the Indian Renaissance actually took place. We all know that it was Tagore, Todar, Sarojini Naidu, Aurobindo. When they were exposed to British, there was a culture, British literature, they were thrilled. They enjoyed reading the text. And the next thing they thought was, what about our culture? We should let the British know the greatness of our culture. So they started writing. And they started writing in a language and using the forms which were acceptable to the British. So they were able to understand and accept the Indian culture without being feeling alienized in any way. That's why you have beautiful works like Aurobindo, Savitri, and then Rabindranath Tagore's poems and his prose works and dramas and so on. All, if you look at them, they are all little Western in their outlook, but these people were totally Indian. They appeared to be Western in order to attract the Western audience. They were able to, convey our culture. They were able to cross cultures. They crossed boundaries. They were actually people who were beyond boundaries. And such writing also is going on nowadays. I shall just give you some of the books I came across and as examples of cross-cultural literature. And one is The Kite Runner by Khalid Hosseini. And many of students also are very interested in The Kite Runner and the sequels. And they were able to identify with those cultures. Then Americana by Chinamanda Adichie. Then On Beauty by Zadie Smith. Then We Are Called to Rise by Laura McBride. And 100-Foot Journey by Richard C. Morris. And then Fury by Salman Rushdie. And House of Sand and Frog by Andre Dubois. The Opposite House by Helen Y. Mee. The Tortilla Curtain by T.C. Boyle. This is just a list which I came across. I'm not very familiar with the works, to be frank. Uh, but as we see that we rejoice both in our similarities and in our differences. Unity in diversity is our motto. India as a nation is multicultural. Our and relations, we are proud to be speakers of Indian English. We call our cousins, brothers and sisters, and an uncle and aunt may not even be related, because that is our culture. And slowly, others are also accepting this culture. They understand. They do not make fun of this. They understand the closeness of our relationship, which the West does not have. Then we have now finally go to cross-cultural trauma, and there are differing views when the two cultures have different world views. They tend to clash. For example, slavery. Slavery, when you from the point of the slave, like Frederick Douglass's work, it's quite different from the slavery depicted in Gone with the Wind. And views of the rape of Nanking and by the Japanese, they have different viewpoints. They are never, all these things are never acknowledged. History is always a controversial subject, because even in everyday life, in everyday stories, we see what if we ask one student what happened, we'll get one version. If we ask another student what happened, we get a different version. So uh, I can see one hand rising. Please, there are any questions, please? So history and new historicism and cultural materialism, all this has come to widen our viewpoints, and we can make parallel studies of different works from different cultures. Maybe, for example, feminism. Indian feminism is quite different from the feminism of the West, of the white West and of the black West. But then we have to find the golden mean everywhere. That's all what I always believe, the golden mean. And finally, before leaving you, I'd like to quote a very famous and well-known poem by Rabindranath Tagore, which I think it's appropriate to the title of my talk, Moving Towards Universality. So that is what we should do from literature in the cultural, cross-cultural context, and in the world we live in. We need a universal outlook, and that's what Tagore had so many years back, where the mind is without fear and the heart is held high, where the head is held high, where the knowledge is free, where the world has not been broken into fragments with narrow domestic walls, where words come out from the depth of truth, where tireless striving stretches arms towards perfection, where the clear stream of reason has not lost its way into the dreary desert sand of dead habit, where the mind is led forward by thee into ever widening thought and action. To that free heaven of freedom, my Father, let my country awake. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Participants, do you have any queries? It's the time to ask your queries. Please. Ma'am, there is a question in the chat box, ma'am. Shobha, ma'am.
Yes. Should we read? I mean, should we Indian English?
Yes, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. Do you agree that we should
Yes,
teach
I
and
think
learn more Indian English?
not totally. Not totally, because texts are actually uh, dif- uh, the texts actually differ. Some texts are more Indian English. Some texts are texts are less Indian English, and in some texts, the educated people speak in a different way. The not so educated people speak in a different way. I think the author is trying to convey the difference between the education cultural background of the particular reader. We should understand, but unless there is a standard Indian English, that is, I think, and they are going to develop. Unless there is a standard Indian English, we should not totally depend on Indian English alone, because when our base is the British English, we can little by little we can make foreigners accept only which is necessary. Like as I said, like food and something. We have a IO also in the Oxford Dictionary. So slowly we can make and understand, but certainly we should have texts uh, which are Indian in background. We have done that to a large extent, because to make it easier for the students to express the thoughts. But as language is concerned, I think British English also we should be familiar with. We should never totally discard it. That is in my opinion.
Thank you, ma'am. Any participants? Malarmali, ma'am, you have raised your hand. If you want to ask a question, please unmute your mic and ask a question, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, I think no more questions from the participant side, ma'am.
Oh, that's fine. I
Thank you
hope you
so
enjoyed
much.
this session.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Just one more question.
Ma'am, there is a
Does
question
Commonwealth
in again
literature?
in ma'am, there is a question again in
I
the
just
chat box, ma'am. Does Commonwealth
I
literature
just took
exist
it in.
at the global level now?
Mm, yes, it does. But Commonwealth as such is confined to the former British colonies. We call it new literature now, um, and it is getting more recognition. Certainly, I think, uh, because we have Commonwealth prizes and all. But I prefer calling it new literature, because new literature will include not only the former British colonies, but other countries. For example, even China can have its own literature. And we have, when we translate works, we can translate from all countries. Like even if I'm going far east again, it is Japan. And we have the oldest novels in Japan. So certainly we have more recognition. And first, the Indian English was not at all considered to be literature, but now it is certainly considered to be literature. These courses are taught. If we look at the courses taught in universities abroad, we'll be surprised. but how much Indian culture is given importance there. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any more queries and questions, participants?
Um, as far as critical texts are concerned, I'm not very sure. Uh, I'm because I am not very familiar with the critical texts as such. But for textbooks, when novels and such, I can suggest Kite Runner, Americana, On Beauty by Zadie Smith, and We Are Called to Rise, The 100-Foot Journey, Kite Runner, by Khalid Hosseini, Fury by Salman Rushdie, The Opposite House by Helen Oyemi, Tortilla Curtain by T.C. Boyle. This is just a very small list. The list is endless because nowadays in most books and even in movies, which are pleasantly surprised. I saw the latest version of David Copperfield on OTT platform, and in that, an Indian is playing David Copperfield. The Jeev Patel, I think, the hero of Life of Pi, he played an excellent version of David Copperfield. So, because we read those texts, we understand the characters, and now people are given the opportunity of acting of these characters.
Thank you, ma'am.
The other question is about Anita Nair. Anita Nair's work, in a certain way, it portrays the cultural trauma. It does portray cultural trauma, but um, I think in Mistress, there is a certain clash of cultures. I am not very familiar with the other works. But she's not a diasporic writer, so I'm not very sure about it. So thank you for acknowledging the things I shared. But actually, I'm a very bad beginner. I just glanced through, to be very frank, for preparation. But this FDP has got me interested in this area. Cultural materialism connection to. So actually, new historicism and cultural materialism are not so much different. In UK, so I think it is called cultural materialism. It developed such, and the US it is called new historicism. May be wrong, but it may be the other way around. But it is just a nomenclature like green studies and ecology, eco-criticism, more or less the same. Green studies is British and eco-criticism is American. New historicism, we can sing like post-colonialism. We can have studies of this. Like I just mentioned, the mad woman in the attic, and we have the writings of the early Britishers who came to India, the diaries, especially the British governors' wives and collectors' wives and all. They kept diaries. They had letters. They sent letters home depicting their ideas about India and its culture. We study them now in the from the viewpoint of new historicism or cultural materialism. We'll find that the attitude of the British was very discriminatory against the Indians. Much travel writing also began in with the colonization.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am, for making the valuable points on literature. You have clearly mentioned out the points on cross culture and the area around it, ma'am. You have pointed out that understanding matters everything. Yes, and we all agree with that point, ma'am. Through your words, we clearly understood that literature is the reflection of life. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation. Even though you have faced some troubles for the past 2 days, but you have done the presentation today. Thank you so much, and thanks a lot for your great effort, ma'am.
Thank you. It was a great honor and
Thank you,
pleasure.
ma'am.
And I'm deeply grateful to the organizers. I'm deeply grateful to the organizers.
Thank you so much,
Shall I leave the
ma'am.
meeting now?
Thank you, dear part. Yes, ma'am.
No, shall I leave the meet now? I have a class.
Yes, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for your valuable time with
Very
us,
kind
ma'am.
of you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, dear participants, for spending your time with us today. We hope that you have enriched your knowledge on the major areas of literature. Thanks again for your cooperation. We are expecting your presence and support for the upcoming days too. We will meet again at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you all. Have a nice day. We will share the feedback link in Google Meet chat box and YouTube live chat box. Thank you.